One of the biggest criticisms of Disney over the past 3 or 4 years has been that they've lost their mojo at the box office. They don't have the Marvel movies to lean on. Pixar hasn't been creating the kind of movies that they used to. Disney Animation has maybe lost some of its touch. But there's some signs of life at the studio, and the last 2 releases, Inside Out 2 and now Deadpool and Wolverine, are showing signs that Disney Studios are really coming back to life and could be meaningful contributors to the company going forward. This is a waterfall kind of a business. That's the way that I like to think about it. The studios are really the start of that waterfall process. Then you go to linear networks and streaming, and then ultimately to parks and the experiences business. That's where Disney still makes most of its money today. But for those parks and experiences business to be profitable 5-10 years from now, you need to be making good movies today. And that's where I think we're seeing some good signs for Disney. $438 million at the box office for Deadpool and Wolverine. So I want to go through some of those trends and what the impact might be a little bit later on this year, because most of this impact is going to be on the fiscal 4th quarter or the calendar 3rd quarter of 2024. That's where we can expect to see revenue increase at the box office. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. So let's get to what we found out over the weekend about the latest film. This is from Box Office Mojo. You can see the $205 million at the domestic box office is what was generated in the first weekend, first 4 days, technically 3 days. It actually opened on Thursday in certain locations. Another $233 million internationally. So this was the biggest box office opening for an R-rated movie ever. You can see here $96 million on open day, 61 and 47.5 for Sunday. Now this compares to Inside Out, which ended up doing $1.5 billion. Still going, so generating a little bit more revenue, but at least $1.5 billion, $600 million domestically. And you can see that the opening was even lower than Wolverine and Deadpool. So it's very possible that Wolverine and Deadpool will move up to the #1 spot, both domestically and globally, for films this year. That would put Disney in the 1-2 spot. So let's put this into a little bit of context for the full year. $613 million. This is just domestic box office for 2024. You can see that was from Inside Out, Despicable Me 4. Only been out for a few weeks, but that's $290 million. And you can see here, Deadpool, likely by the end of this week, is probably going to be up into that #2 spot. But I want to put into context where this actually ends up on Disney's financial statements, because box office revenue doesn't translate directly to revenue for Disney as a company. About half of the money from the box office goes to the actual theater. And so oftentimes you're not going to have a ton of revenue coming in from the box office or even much margin coming from the box office. Most of the profits are going to be made after this box office window. Now, these movies might be big enough that they will be profitable initially, but these kind of give you some context. So this is the most recent quarter, $1.4 billion in revenue, $2.3 billion a year earlier. So down 40%. Why was revenue down 40% and going from a slight profit to a slight loss? Well, in 2023, you had Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania, and also some benefit from Avatar, The Way of Water, that opened up in late 2022. So you had continued revenue in 2023. So what exactly were those numbers? We go to these same box office numbers. You go to 2023, and you can see that Avatar, $283 million is again domestic. Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania, $214.5 million worth of revenue. Guardians of the Galaxy was the other big movie, but none of these compare to these 2 films from Disney. So again, another sign that the box office is going to be much better. If we go back to 2022, this is where you are going to have a little bit more comparable numbers. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and then Avatar, The Way of Water, $401 million for that one. So this year is likely going to be better than either of the last 2 years, and clearly better than the pandemic years for Disney at the box office. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Now, if you're going to want to see the financial impact, you're going to have to dig a little bit into the financial statements. This is the entertainment segment. What Disney ends up doing is they say we have the entertainment segment, sports segment, that is ESPN, experiences, obviously the parks, cruise ships, all that kind of stuff. So what you're going to need to do is break down this entertainment segment to get to what the box office looks like. This is that breakdown. Linear networks are obviously going to be cable networks, and then ABC. Direct to consumer is going to be the streaming business. And then content sales and licensing, that is going to be everything movies. So this includes box office. This includes everything that they're licensing to other studios. So this number, this quarterly revenue number, and then ultimately the operating income from that segment are going to be the two that we're going to want to watch in both the fiscal third quarter. That's going to have a pretty significant amount of the Inside Out 2 revenue, and then also the fiscal fourth quarter that will have a little bit more from both Inside Out 2 and then Wolverine and Deadpool. So those are going to be the two to watch, and should be pretty positive impact, give the company a little bit of momentum going into the back half of the year. This also isn't the end of the slate for Disney for 2024. You can see Inside Out 2 here, Deadpool and Wolverine here, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, one that Bob Iger talked about a lot in the most recent conference call, didn't do particularly well at the box office. But you do have, before the end of the year, Moana 2 is another one that's going to be opening up. I wouldn't be surprised to see Inside Out 2 type numbers from them, from that movie. And then also Mufasa, the Lion King. That's another one that's going to be highly anticipated. You go into next year and you got another Captain America movie, Snow White, Fantastic Four, and a bunch of other titles that we don't necessarily know exactly what they are. So it certainly seems like the box office is going to get revitalized under Disney in 2024 and then into 2025. So there's going to really be a few things that are going to be impacted with the revitalization of the box office at Disney. One, you're just generally going to have more revenue coming from the studios and from the box office. That's going to help the bottom line. It's going to help pay for this content up front. The other thing is it's going to revitalize Disney's brand. If people are going to see Disney movies, they're going to see it more positively, maybe visit the parks a little bit, spend money on action figures, all the things that kids buy when they get into movies. But the third thing, and probably the most important long term, is going to be attracting more and more people to the streaming service and then making that product stickier over time. Whether you're talking about kids movies, which would be on the Disney and Pixar side of things, that has become a real must-have for most parents. I know I fall into that boat. But then also if you have new content coming from Marvel or Star Wars, that's going to make it much more attractive to adults. You add that to Hulu and then also the sports bundle that's going to be coming in 2025 with ESPN going over the top. I think that streaming service is looking much, much more attractive than it was even just a year or two ago. So again, go back to that waterfall. Disney is a waterfall company, and it starts at the top with the content business. If that content business is humming, that makes everything else work much better. That's what I'm seeing in 2024. They at least have some momentum. If they have another couple big hits in the back half of the year, this could be a phenomenal year for Disney at the box office and really revitalize the company's financials and even the stock going into 2025. But let me know what you think about Disney and how they're doing at the box office right now. Leave those comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.